when it comes to standards, you have to be consistent. And this is common sense, but you can't have a standard for you and then a different standard for someone else. That's the definition of inequality. Now, how does this play into politics? There's so much more I could say, but I'm going to try to keep this short. The way this plays into politics is the politicians who advocate for equality are not advocating for real equality. They're advocating for a standard that's not going to be applied equally across all spectrums. Let me give you an example. Roseanne got and this is really isn't a politician thing. This is this is a culture thing. Roseanne was fired for her racist tweets about the woman, VJ Valerie Jarrett, I think her name is. Jimmy Kimmel went on TV in blackface. Jimmy Kimmel went on his TV show on blackface. There are so many different things that I can point to. Now, I'm not saying that because one person was wrong that someone else is okay in doing what they're doing. My point is, if you look at what happens when white people say something, when you look at what happens when a Trump supporter says something, compared to the outrage that you get when a liberal says something on the same level of offensiveness, or a black person, you won't see the same standard being applied equally. And sometimes people will say, like, oh, so what? They had the upper hand, or they had the favorite. They had like special privilege or whatever. We deserve it too. That's not equality. If that's the way you feel, then that's the way you feel. But that's not equality. The problem is people project special rights as equality. For example, Christians. Everybody knows about the Christian Baker thing, right? There was all these protests that these Christian bakers were basically ruined because they had personal conviction against making a cake for a gay couple, a wedding cake for a gay couple. Now, if you disagree with their stance, I understand that completely. I'm not here to argue or try to convince you. What I want to point out is it became national news. They practically lost their business. Their names were ran through the dirt. They were called bigots and all this other stuff, right? But like I've posted on Facebook before, there's a coffee shop that denied service to Christians in Seattle, I believe. He refused to serve them because they were Christians. He even said to them, they said, well, why are you being so intolerant to us? And he said, well, I'm gay, so I bet you wouldn't be tolerant of me if I had my boyfriend here. So get the F out of my coffee shop. And if Jesus was here, I would F him in the butt. He actually said this to Christians. No national news. It made a few headlines there, mostly conservatives or Christians or whatever. But that is just as equally as bigoted and even worse than not baking a cake for someone. I shouldn't even have to argue that. But there's no outrage of it. You probably don't even know that happened. But you know about the bakers, right? There's a coffee shop in California that refused to serve police officers. They said police officers are not welcome here because we don't want our people being for the safety of our patrons, right? I had a notification. For the safety of our patrons, we don't want police here. Isn't that discrimination? Isn't that inequality? Now you may say, well, that's a business owner, that's a personal right. That's the same thing people said in the 50s and the 40s when they didn't want to serve black people. You can't have it both ways. This is what I'm trying to point out. Now, the gay community, the gay community, the political gay community, political Muslim community, the political basically you think of any group, the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Think about this. The Black Lives Matter had a march, and they had a sign that said they were chanting "pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon." Is that not disrespectful to the cops out there? Is that not offensive? Is that not hate speech? It's legal, but it's hate speech. You won't see any outcry against that. But you'll see an outcry if one cop, just one, not a whole march of people, if one cop makes a dumb tweet or makes a bigoted, why is it right? Keep itching. If one cop makes an ignorant tweet about black people or whatever, or poor people or whatever, it will be front page news. It'll be front page news, and it'll be all over TV shows. You'll see Al Sharpton, you'll see Jesse J, you'll see all these people who make a living off of hate speech. Basically, they make a living off of people feeling like a victim. That's a whole nother story. But my whole point is, a lot of people who have good intentions, who really believe in equality, and they don't want to see people being hurt, they don't want to see people being treated less than a human and that sort of thing. Their intentions are good, but at the political level of how that activism often plays out, it plays out in a way that does not create equality. It simply tips the scale from one side, that they believe is like has the upper hand or whatever, or is doing the inequality. It basically shifts the power from the oppressor to the victim. So now the victim, people who are labeled as victims, can say or do all of these things that if the so-called oppressor did, the oppressor would be chastised and condemned for it. But now the other side does the same thing, and it's justified because they're viewed as victims.